Hello. This is a video to show you how to create vocab lists using the Haverford's Bridge website. This is a skill we're going to be using a lot when we're making lists for our AP Latin class. I'm also going to show you a little bit on how you can use them in other programs. So the first thing to do is you need to find the Bridge website. It's bridge.haverford.edu. I have a link to this in Schoology. But you can always get there pretty easily by going into a Google search and just typing Bridge Latin. And once you're here, you can log in and create an account if you'd like, but you don't necessarily have to. And you can select which languages you'd like to work with. So obviously we're going to start with Latin, but if for some reason you want to do something with Greek, you could. Okay, so now we need to select what work we're actually starting with. And to do that, we hit the plus button. And we're going to have all sorts of potential options here. Again, this is set up for full-fledged classicists, so there is not a limit necessarily on what's available. It also, interestingly, has textbooks as well. So like Cambridge Latin course, for instance, is a textbook series. Unfortunately, I don't think the Lingua Latina series that we use at Holy Ghost is here. But if you are ever willing, you should look around through here and see if there's anything that you're interested in working with. For college, for instance, if you use a different textbook, this could be useful. But anyway, you're going to want to select one of the texts that we're using for our class. And if I'm not mistaken, they actually already have some AP selections in here. But even if they don't, that's okay. We can work with it. Here we go. So Virgil's Aeneid. Frequency list for AP selection. So we can try that. And you could theoretically just run this now, and it would give you a list of everything for the entirety of the Aeneid. So for instance, you can say, I want, all this stuff. And now all of a sudden, here is a list of probably, 3,000 or so words, however many it is, of every word that shows up on the AP Latin syllabus. It goes on and on and on and on. It's huge. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff here. But we don't really want that because one massive vocab list is not actually helpful. You want to have lots of smaller vocab lists, each of which is associated with a particular scene or a particular set of passages. Okay, so what you want to do is the exact same thing. So you want to create a list. You want to say that you're working with Virgil's Aeneid. It doesn't matter which one you would choose. Make sure there's no other options here. I don't think there are. I think there's only that one section for Virgil. Here's the Virgil's Aeneid. This is just the blank Virgil's Aeneid. So let's try that one, okay? And you'll notice this isn't the AP one, but that's okay, because what we're going to do is instead of selecting the whole thing, we're going to select a section of the book. Okay, so I only want vocab that comes from a particular section of the book. Okay, and what you would do is use this setting to slim down your list to something more manageable. Okay, so let's say, for instance, if we want to look at our very first selection from the AP syllabus, which I believe is something like the first 11 lines or so. Okay, so we would say I want book one. The Aeneid is broken up into books and line numbers. So you would say book one, line number 1. Okay, so that's book 1, line 1, to book 1, line 11. Okay, and that's how you would say you were doing that section of the Aeneid. Okay, so book 1, line 1 to book 1, line 11. And then you can play with these editor settings. So let's say, for instance, you knew all of Virgil's Georgics perfectly. You knew all the vocabulary perfectly. You could include a thing that says, I want you to get rid of any words that are in Virgil's Georgics or Virgil's Eclogues or whatever. There's no way that you'll memorize any of that. But if you have, for some reason, a smaller list of words that you do know and you want excluded from the new list you're creating, you can do that. If you wanted to combine lists, you could do that using the same thing. But for most cases, you're going to want to just say, I don't want to customize my list. So here we go. Now we have a much more manageable list. specifically for this single section of the text, okay? That's all you need. Now, there's some elements here. You can filter this stuff and say you don't want certain things. So, for instance, I would recommend that you could say you want a running list, okay, or no running list. A running vocab list generally means you're seeing the words as they appear, although this now seems like it's adding extra words in here. So I'm not quite sure what this setting is doing, but you could play with all of these other things. So let's say, for instance, you don't want pronouns, right? Things like hic and ille, okay? Might be a good idea to include them at the start of your time working with the Aeneid or any text, because you might need some refreshers. But let's say you didn't want them. Well, you can remove them like this, okay? And that'll slim down the list a little bit. You can even refine it and say, I only want certain elements here. Prepositions, for instance, are also another one that you might easily want to get rid of to slim things down. Because theoretically, you would know things like in, ex, de, sub, all that stuff. Idioms, probably one you can get rid of, as well as interjections, because there's probably not going to be too many of them. I would probably keep adjectives, adverbs, conjunctions, probably, at least at the start. There are some strange conjunctions in poetry, things that you might not have seen before. Numbers are probably safe to get rid of. They're not very common, although you can see that added one word here. So you're welcome to keep it if you like. And then you can play with all of this as you like. So there's lots of different selections here. Feel free to include them. If you'd rather have a short definition as opposed to their longer definition here, I kind of like this local definition, because what that means is it's giving you a definition that is specifically matched to the Aeneid, right? If I say a long definition for a word in the Aeneid, right? So if I have memoir, okay, remembering, mindful of, okay, great. But this local definition might give you something that is specifically geared towards the Aeneid. And if you look, this is actually what it is. Book 1, line 23, it tells you to be looking at this, okay? Or here's another one, book 4, 539, right? It's trying to give you a specific meaning that would be specifically related to the Aeneid. So play with these as you like, whichever ones you would prefer to have in your display. And really, this might not matter, because this probably matters if you hit print page, which would be the way that you would then send this off to, then be printed if you wanted to directly print this. But what you probably want to do more is hit export as CSV, okay? And that's going to spit out a Excel file for you, which we can open up. Now, hopefully, this is recording this as well. Okay. So if we take a look now, we've got this big old mess of text here in an Excel file. And you will notice it's a little bit messy because it includes everything, right? We have all of the headings, right? So it's got a short definition, a long definition. It didn't take into account the filters that we put on it when we were messing with it online. Okay. So we want to clean this up a bit so that it only includes the stuff that we're interested in. Okay. We really don't care about the source text because we all know it's from Virgil. So we can get rid of this column, and that'll clean things up a little bit. Order of appearance, this is useful. It tells you what lines the words appear in. If you wanted to keep track of the order that these words appear in, this could be useful. So that's a good idea to generally keep that. Because in a running vocab list, you generally want to know, okay, these words that are in this part come from the first line. That way, as you're moving through the text, the vocab follows along in the same order. So that might be good to get. Count in selection, not so important, just shows you how often it appears in the passage. Total count in text, apparently the word and, atque, appears this many times, 3,000 something times. I'm not too worried about that. These links are definitional links, and we don't need those. Part of speech could theoretically be useful. If you were interested in knowing, okay, I need to study my verbs, let's sort this by all the conjunctions. And now you can put all the conjunctions together. Here we have the actual definitions. And, again, you can play with the local, long, and short. Right now, these local ones are really taking up a lot of space. So it might be a good idea to, for our purposes for this demonstration, get rid of this one. But you can choose what you would like from all of these. You also can edit these. So let's say, for instance, you want to use the local definition here, okay? But you're worried about it taking up a lot of space. So what you can do is say like, oh, the short and the long are here. Compare the two together and say, oh, arms, weapons. All right, we're going to stick with arms. I can get rid of the local definition for this one. Like you can customize this and say, take your favorite thing from over here and pull it over here. But in theory, you should come up with something that's a little bit more quick and easy to look at as opposed to this. So choose whichever one you like, but edit it in such a way that you're not going to have a huge mess of text here. If you do end up using this long one, there are usually options for wrapping the text around so that you have, instead of one giant long line, you would have a easier to read thing. And I believe if we say text, we want wrap text. Here we go, wrap text. Boom. And that should theoretically make this whole thing a little bit more manageable. If I resize it now, instead of having a gigantic thing, that text will kind of wrap around the cell to the next line. It makes these a little bit more spaced out, which is maybe not what you want. But again, edit this to be the way that you want it to be. So let's say we're not going to use this. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of the simple lemma. And we're going to keep that. We have two things: principal parts, no diacritical marks, principal parts with diacritical marks. If you notice, the diacritical marks are the little extra symbols like longs and shorts. That can mess with your formatting. You don't really need to know those longs and shorts at all. So I would say recommend use this instead. Clearly, there's something strange going on with the formatting here, and we can figure out why that is the case, why this is being a little bit goofy. Sometimes those things get fixed if you change the font. Let's see if we can do that and fix the font. That doesn't seem like it's doing anything, but we'll double check. Palatino sometimes fixes that. No. But anyway, this won't matter so much because you can upload these things to another format. But anyway, this would be how you would manipulate your list in Excel. But let's say you don't want to manipulate in Excel. Instead, what you can do is open it up in Google Sheets. So if I say input and I say upload, I can select from my downloads.
I found this on Google.
Here we go. We want to create a new spreadsheet. We can play with these settings as much as we want. I will say insert new sheet. And it should automatically import that whole file that we just had. You'll notice all the strange problems that we had with the text are gone, right? So again, same thing. We can select what we want. I don't need the source text, so I'll get rid of that. I don't need these guys, so I can get rid of that. I can remove these in favor of the easier stuff. And here now I can actually keep the diacritical marks, and it won't be an issue. I can rearrange these. So if I take this, I should be able to remove these columns. So if I delete this column, and I can delete these columns, and I can delete these columns. Boom. All right. So now I've got myself a nice, simple Excel sheet, which I can then work with. Okay. Now you'll notice already, see something down here must be long, right? So this is long. So you're never going to want to just stick straight with this. You're going to want to try to edit this down a little bit so that you don't have to worry about these long, gigantic columns. So for instance, Albanus, pertaining to Alba Longa, a city in Latium, birthplace of our missionaries. You don't need this, right? You can just get rid of this, clean it up, boom, pertaining to Alba Longa. And now that's a little bit tighter, okay? You can also do the word wrap option. that we saw before. So if you highlight, say, these texts, let's make this big again. So now we have that long alba longa definition again right here. If I go here and I say format and I say text wrapping, I can say wrap. And now if I make this smaller again, that alba longa thing is going to wrap around. Okay. So there's lots of stuff that you can do to manipulate this. I'm also a big fan of using the freeze option. If you say freeze and then you say first row, now no matter how far down I scroll, I'll still have the headers at the top of this line here. So these can be useful for working with your vocab lists. But anyway, from here, you can do whatever you want. You can edit your vocab lists here. You could print them out here if you wanted to. You can make them into PDFs. Everything you can do can be done as this Google Sheet. You could copy this table and paste it into a Word document or a Google Doc if you wanted to edit it that way. The possibilities are endless. So just using these tools however you'd like to make sure that you can manipulate your vocab list as you wish. But my recommendation would be have the principal parts, some kind of definition, whether that's a customized one that you use or you create one based on the suggestions that they give you. Part of speech is probably useful in case you say to yourself, oh, I want to study all the adjectives that show up in this text today. Well, here you go. Probably you would do it more with nouns and verbs, but that's up to you. And order of appearance might be useful, again, so that you can quickly say, okay, these are the things that appear, or the order in which they appear. But again, you might not care about that. But I recommend keeping this in here so that when you are sorting your words, you'll always see them in the order that they appear in the text. So you can know if you're at the start of the passage you're working with, Arma is going to be here, we're, and so on and so forth. That's it. That's how you do basic vocab list creation and manipulation using the Bridge's export feature.